New NBA Plus Stuff podcast in the description. Talked about Blake Griffin's first 3 games with the Detroit Pistons, and then I talked about The Rock and his widely successful, but weirdly enough, critically disappointing movie career up to this point. Tyreke Evans has been fantastic for the Memphis Grizzlies this season, which is something that I did not think I was going to be saying because Tyreke, for pretty much his whole career, to me has been a guy who's been a little too shot happy, sometimes not the best playmaker, not the best outside shooter, but he's been able to correct a lot of the things that I didn't like about him, mainly the shooting, and I will admit now, perhaps I underestimated how good of a playmaker he really was. But if we can begin with that outside jumper, which to me has been the biggest revelation for him, for his career he's shooting 31% from 3. Not very good. This season, 39% from outside on 5.5 attempts a game. Now I know some of these are deep 2-pointers, but I mean the dude's had an improvement just overall from outside to the point where the defense really does have to pay attention now to him from out there. I mean, even his long 2-pointers, he's shooting 43% on those, which is significantly better than he's ever shot. So now, even when Tyreke Evans doesn't have the ball in his hands, he can provide spacing, and he's not just kind of standing there with not much real impact. But he's also been really good at taking threes off the dribble. And he's always been a dude who could be effective when it comes to attacking inside. So now if you got to respect him on step backs and pull-up jumpers in the pick and roll, suddenly he's really grown into a really just all-around offensive player. And now we can get to his playmaking. He's had 5 assists per game, which is not too foreign for him. He's been around there for basically his whole career. But what I really want to talk about is how much more efficient he is with the ball. Because for his career, his turnover percentage, which I would say is more accurate than turnovers per game because it takes into account just how often you have the ball, his turnover percentage for his career is 14%. And the highest it's been was 17% for the Pelicans back in 2016. This year it's at 10%, which is like Kyrie Irving levels of never turning the ball over. So suddenly the guy who sometimes was over-dribbling or just not seeing teammates that were open or perhaps not spotting potential rollers to the basket or not recognizing when there was a switch on the floor, that's all almost just gone. And it's replaced with this guy who can score from anywhere on the floor while also make a lot of plays for teammates. And then it all comes back to the thing that he's been good at for pretty much his whole career, which is just attacking the basket and finishing. Now, funny enough, he is not actually as good at finishing at the basket as he used to be. His first couple of seasons, he was around 60% at the rim. This year, he's at 54%, which is actually an improvement over the last couple of seasons, but it seems to be working, you know? He's always been a guy who could create separation, and he's shooting about 4 free throws a game, which is pretty close to when he had his best seasons, his first couple of years with the Sacramento Kings. Basically, Tyreke Evans is a new player, and it makes sense that the Grizzlies would want to get something for him because, well, 1, teams just need guys who can score off the bench. 2, he's on a 1-year deal, so it's not going to hurt teams in the long term. Could potentially re-sign him, could potentially not, whatever. And then also, he can warrant you a first-round pick if you're the Grizzlies, right? And they're not a good team. He's probably not going to return to you, so it makes a lot of sense. If we talk about like what I would be willing to give up for Tyreke Evans, I would say a first-round pick with potentially some protections on it would probably be the way to go. Now, if I had like a young player that I would be comfortable with trading away, and then I could give you like a second-round pick or something, maybe that's something, but I do think a first-round pick with probably some protections on it would get it done for the Grizzlies, and I am decently confident that Tyreke Evans will get moved because the Grizzlies have almost no reason to actually keep the guy. And I guess now what we can talk about is just some of the potential teams. Of course, the Boston Celtics have been heavily talked about with Tyreke Evans, as they've been looking for a guy who can score off the bench. And I did talk about this a bit in my Marcus Smart video yesterday, because it seems like they want to get a first-round pick for Marcus Smart and then trade that first-round pick for either Tyreke or Lou Williams. If we talk about how Tyreke fits into what they have going on, I mean, they've needed offense off the bench this entire season. It makes sense. Gordon Hayward got hurt, and they've struggled on that side of the floor. They've been, of course, damn good on offense, very good on defense, the best defensive team in the NBA. I do have a little bit of concerns, I don't know if that's proper English, but I do have some fear that swapping Marcus Smart for Tyreke Evans could hurt you on defense, because with all the improvement that Tyreke has made on offense, I would say defensively he's been, average? Going from Marcus Smart to average is a pretty big drop-off, if you ask me, to the point where it might not make them the best defensive team in the NBA anymore, but of course you would expect an offensive improvement. Would it be an offensive improvement that was worth it? I mean, potentially, I do think with a Brad Stevens coach team and with Al Horford at center and having still a decent amount of switchy wing defenders and Jason Tatum, and of course Al Horford is very good on defense, I would like to believe that you could maintain still being a really good defense without Marcus Smart, and then the offense would only improve with Tyreke, right? But we would have to see. Now, of course, the Celtics are not the only team that has been rumored for Tyreke. There's also the Denver Nuggets, and I would have to guess that this would be because they still don't really have that great of a point guard rotation. I mean, I like Jamal Murray, and I think he can grow into being a really good point guard. And if you acquired Tyreke, maybe Jamal Murray would still start at point guard, because his shooting has really come alive this season. 38% from 3 on 5 attempts a game. So you could argue that it would be better for you to just keep him in the starting 5, but then off the bench, I can understand why you'd want to go to Tyreke Evans, because, I mean, Emmanuel Mudiay serves as the backup point guard right now. Tyreke, of course, way better. But the interesting thing there would be Will Barton, because he has the ball a decent amount of the time. I mean, Barton averages 4 assists a game, So could he and Tyreke Evans play off of each other? I mean, they both can shoot threes, so there's that, but they're both used to having the ball in their hands as well, so might be a little bit of an adjustment necessary for both of them, but I do think just adding another piece into that Denver thing, that could be something. If you have a lot of offense at that point between Jokic, Tyreke Evans, Gary Harris, Will Barton, Wilson Chandler has not been very good this season, but he plays 30 minutes a night. It could be something, I think. Trey Lyles also as a stretch 4 has been very good for them, so just a whole lot of shooting, and then, when Millsap comes back, maybe that could do it for your defense. An interesting little subplot of a potential Denver move. If I was the Grizzlies, I would try to get Malik Beasley, the shooting guard for the Nuggets who just hasn't been able to play, but people within the NBA, scouts and all that, they all say that Malik Beasley is going to be pretty good. So if you could get him, if you're Memphis, I would say jump on it. And now, there are still other teams. There's also the Philadelphia 76ers. And this one confused me initially just because my immediate thought was, well, you already have Ben Simmons. But when I started looking at their minutes in their previous game against the Pacers, Jared Bayless played like 23 minutes. I'm pretty sure you could put Tyreke Evans in there over Jared Bayless, and you'd probably be okay. You'd have more creating abilities. I mean, you could argue that Bayless is a better shooter than Tyreke, but Tyreke is definitely a better all-around offensive player with just how efficient he's been with the ball in his hands this season. And TJ McConnell's minutes have been kind of inconsistent, I would say, for Philadelphia. So maybe Brett Brown doesn't have an exact clue of what he wants to do with this rotation. I think Tyreke Evans could perhaps make a little bit more certainty, because I'm saying that, like, in the last 5 games, TJ McConnell has had 3 games where he's played under 20 minutes, and then he's had other games where he's played over 20 minutes. It was a little more consistent about a month ago, but I do think there's definitely an offensive improvement from TJ to Tyreke. And also, TJ McConnell has not been good with Ben Simmons this season. They've played 460 minutes together, and it's minus 6.5. With Tyreke Evans being more of an outside shooter than TJ is, perhaps that would be better, you know? I mean, you know, TJ's been good as a backup point guard. I get it. You know, he's a good playmaker. He finds ways to attack closeouts even if teams leave him open from the three-point line, and you know, he does those sort of things. But if you're not good with Ben Simmons, then how valuable really are you for this team? Now, he is plus 2.2 with Joel Embiid, so that's like at least some sort of a saving grace. But you know, if Tyreke is going to be good with both of your star players, then you'd rather have him than TJ McConnell in there for, I don't know, 25 minutes a game. Now let's get to the Miami Heat, who have been a little on the outside of the Tyreke Evans rumors, but I guess they're kind of lingering. I mean, they're 25th in offense and they're 5th in defense. I think that says a lot of it right there. They have had injuries. Dion, of course, is out for the season because of an ankle injury he suffered about a month and a half ago at this point, I would say. Kelly Olynyk had hurt his shoulder, but it seems like he should be fine overall. I mean, if you could just get a guy in Tyreke who could put up, even if he's not going to put up his normal 20 plus, like a solid 16, 17, make plays for others, make plays for himself, hit from outside, they could definitely use it, because this team doesn't have a single dude who puts up over 20 a game. And if you're not going to have that, then you have to make up for it with guys who can hit from outside, dudes who can play in the pick and roll, a guy in Whiteside who can grab offensive rebounds, and you just need to pass the ball around like crazy. And if you had Tyreke, Dragic, James Johnson, Tyler Johnson, maybe that's enough passing to where it all works out. Tyreke is interesting. I think he's a valuable player who's definitely improved this season. Pretty confident he's going to get moved. Just got to see what happens. And then once again, new podcast in the description. Blake Griffin's debut with the Pistons. Well, first 3 games. And then The Rock and his movie career that confuses the hell out of me.